climbing is dumb. There are easier ways to get to the top. So the point is to do the absurd. To take the hard way. To do something brand new means you see something no one else sees. And you take a chance to do something no one has done. You risk falling, failing, looking foolish. But there's something magical in showing the world something new. And that can be contagious. This is when I first met Boone. I was 19. I was this dorky kid with no idea what I was going to do with my life. And he was one of the best climbers in Utah already. After climbing around a little bit, he came up to me and gave me some shit for the music I put on. I thought he was kind of a dick. But he invited me on a road trip that ended up in Waco. And that's how it started. When did he first rock climb?
Do you know, I'm not really sure. Because I didn't even know it, because I don't think he wanted me to know at first. I have pictures of all of our chairs turned upside down. I got him down off the refrigerator and the stove. Just had to watch him all the time.
My first climbing area was off vertical, slabby, heinous, slippery quartzite. Just naturally, like scaling these walls, it just felt really free and really just amazing. You know, like I felt at home.
And I used to say to him, you know, Boone, you got to be careful. You don't want to do such and such, you know. And he said, I decided a long time ago that I was never going to live my life out of fear.
From the first day I went climbing to the day I was on Climbing Magazine cover was probably 5 years. I think I was on the cover in 1990 or early 1991.
I remember first meeting this guy who was this tall, lanky dude with this big shag of long brown hair and this booming voice and a name that belongs to a porn star. Who ever heard of Boone Speed? He was an amazingly good climber and totally dedicated to the sport.
He went from a small-town loner kid to one of the best climbers in the world in just a couple of years. And I saw it happen. I filmed it. I got better at climbing, but Boone was at a whole different level. I found myself using the camera as much as I used my climbing shoes.
When I first started climbing, you know, Boone was probably the best or one of the best American climbers at the time. Me, you know, kind of finding out about him really came to fruition through Super Tweak and seeing the video of him climbing Super Tweak on Masters of Stone. That really inspired me as a climber. For me, first real hard sport climb was Super Tweak. You know, it's his route, it's kind of following his footstep. I wanted to try something harder, and so I tried Boone's project, Necessary Evil. And when I went to actually go red point it, that's when we met. You and Boone came out and we first spent time together. And so Necessary Evil basically became the hardest route in the country at that point. That Boone came out and like supported me, like it meant so much to me at the time. Climbing is more than just a sport. It's
good job, man.
It's a way of life. It's an art form.
Like you and I were really young when this was all happening. We were kind of lost and we were also driven. So it was a weird combination. Like we were like these Tasmanian devils wound up and ready to go. And she just took us and put us on this path.
Right.
And was like, here's some direction.
Yeah, it
here's
gave us direction and a purpose in a world that we wanted to conquer. Mariah was the heartbeat of Black Diamond.
He would call me and he would call me, have you guys decided when you're coming? Have you thought about my job application? I really want to work there. I thought it was just very unusual to meet someone that had that level of enthusiasm and also just a commitment to push on it. And I'm like that. And so I like seeing that in other people.
I mean, even though I was on the cover of Climbing Magazine, I still needed a job. The sponsorship dollars were super low, and I never really thought of that as being like a viable long-term option.
He got involved with everything. He got involved with marketing, he got involved with product, he had all kinds of design ideas.
Boone is a huge personality. So when Boone is in the room, everyone knows it. We weren't an old company, but we had people that had been there for 4 or 5 or 6 years who were pretty set in their ways. Today we would call that a disruption, and it was disruptive.
I was getting more responsibility and it was intense. We were creating products on our own. You and I had that skunk works scenario at Black Diamond, creating innovative things like the Spot.
So back then, climbing pads were either homemade from couch cushions or foam chunks with duct tape wrapped around them. Ever since that first trip to Waco, Boone and I had been working on a way to make a better landing than the camp chairs we used for padding. So we prototyped, tested, and came up with the Spot. When we pitched the Spot to Black Diamond, lots of people didn't think it would ever be sellable. One rep said, bouldering would never be a big part of climbing. But with Mariah's insistence and her help, it hit the market.
The Spot was the beginning of Black Diamond really focusing on what climbing actually was at the moment and not what it had been in the past.
The process that was imparted on us by Mariah was reductionism. And that is to strip everything away that doesn't matter to get to the essence of what you're trying to say or show or be. We applied that to Pusher.
Pusher was a climbing hold company that we started with Dave Bell and Rob Gilbert. Climbing gyms had just been popping up and they all needed holds.
Pusher came along. I mean, there were no boundaries.
Boone saw the opportunity for climbing, to be in the Olympics someday. Imagine that. And Boone believed that back in the early 90s, like the sun was going to come up the next morning.
What Pusher became was a focal point in the simmering bouldering scene. The videos, Sharma, and the photos. His photos describe this new bouldering boom perfectly.
We weren't selling life-supporting gear. We were selling plastic holds and t-shirts and posters and this idea and videos. Our media, your media was probably one of our best things that we did.
Okay, you get the idea. This was Boone's second cover. That's me, the guy behind the guy. We spent 10 years doing everything together. He was my brother and my mentor, and everything he did made a dent in the world, and I wondered if I could make one too. When Pusher was nearing its peak, Boone and Obi and I went around the world looking for the best bouldering. I made a film about it called Frequent Flyers. Right after that, we got into a fight over who should get credit for what. Dumb stuff like that. And it was bad enough that I decided I needed to do something. So I left. Do you remember that time that you and I didn't talk for a while? We were at Forestdale golfing. I said something, you said something, and I was like, fuck this, and I just walked off the course.
I don't really remember that, but I don't doubt it.
Whoever had contact with Boone will have felt a force of a person. It's a for better or worse thing. It can be strong, it can be charismatic, it can be inviting, it can be a magnet. It can also just be completely overbearing. I think that Boone and I share some of these almost like overbearing, confident, like ruthless ambition, right at all cost personality traits. You know, that's probably why we've become such good friends. But those exact personality traits are some of the ones that I don't like about myself the most.
He sees the line that he wants to take, he sees the shot he wants to take, and we'll like argue over it sometimes, and I have like my point of view. And one of the things that's really cool about that is the fact that he's so uncompromising with his vision. Yeah, that has certainly inspired me a lot and influenced me like in my climbing and my life too. So.
We showed up to the deep water solo cave and there's a fuckload of jellyfish underneath, but we're still gonna go climbing because Boone says they're not gonna sting us if we wear our clothes.
And what's Boone getting out of all this?
Photos, notoriety. He's getting art actually, and I'm just gonna get jellyfish stings on my nuts.
Do you think that they're not going in the sun? Like, should I swim out to the sun?
Yeah, I'd swim out.
It's not a
Yeah,
bad
that's the way to
idea.
do it for sure.
You could actually get in over here pretty easily.
I'm going to hell.
I didn't pick the easiest person to be married to. I picked a great one, but it definitely isn't an easy path. I think because he looks at the world differently, he really wants to show that to people. Because he really truly looks at the world differently, I think. He loves showing that through his photos, coming up with a different perspective for people to look at.
Come on, Chris.
He very much is about reductionism with his photography, with his art, and within our relationship too. His analogy is always the peeling the layers of the onion back. You know, he starts at the top and then slowly, slowly, slowly gets to what he thinks is the real issue. Until it's the truth, until it's that kernel, he won't stop. There's pros and there's cons, and you have to take the whole package.
I can totally admit that I can be a dick. I can call people out. My dad could show his teeth, and it meant something. Mariah shows her teeth, it means something. Do they cross the line? Maybe that's a different conversation. But even if they do every once in a while, for the most part, 95% of the time, they probably should have showed their teeth.
Grant Speed was a famous Western sculptor.
I grew up with my dad taking, Polaroids of his work, being on photo shoots with my dad, like photographing his artwork. Part of my curriculum was to study also photography, and I enrolled in some black and white photography classes and darkroom stuff. I used my father as a subject one day. He was working on this really beautiful bust of a woman. I just really wanted to photograph that, and I wanted to try to capture how I saw my dad working on this stuff. My dad was like a great dad. also like a coach. Also hard on me sometimes. You know, my dad was a cowboy. He could live off the land, and he knew how to make his own way. Art is such a funny concept, right? I'm not creative at all, or I'm not an artist, or I'm not, like, I could never do that, or I need a real job, or you know what I mean? And my dad was like, you don't talk about it, you just do it. It wasn't until he died that I realized that he'd set such a high bar in my mind. Would my dad approve, or would it hold up to his high standard? I loved my dad, he respected me, no unresolved business, everything was totally cool. He died, and it was just like, wait a minute, I lost my arm.
My mom taught me how to read. She was a writer. I grew up in a conservative home, and I fought it until I moved out. But she accepted me anyway. Right after I moved away and started climbing, my sisters were abused by a guy from church. The bishop told my mom to let it go, and that was it for her. She left the church, stood by my sisters, and reinvented herself. She went back to school, traveled a bit, and started teaching and writing again. She became who she really wanted to be. She kept writing as long as she could, but dementia slowly took that away from her. I got to spend a lot of time with her that last year. I'd tell her stories about my travels and climbing and work, and she would smile and nod. She always liked stories. She died right before I came to Spain, and I got what Boone meant about losing his arm.
That's the shot.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Nice, dude, that's sick. Dude, that's like, right?
Yeah, I think
That's
that's what they're looking for.
fucking perfect.
Boone's photos have an opinion. He can do commercial work, but even that has something bold about it. They kind of look more like paintings than photographs. As if he's shooting the emotion of the frame, not the obvious, but the hidden, the essence of it. You can feel the air, the rock, the speed. It pushes me to feel my work more and think about it less. Boone and I got together after a few years and talked. We both realized how much we add to each other's lives, as hard as it can be. And I wasn't in his shadow anymore. I felt like an equal.
I took a lot of things, friendships, opportunity, all that for granted. I mean, for sure, when I was in my 20s and 30s, and you know, it's like, it is all about, it's so egocentric, right? Having that relationship with you and all my good old friends again, it makes me realize like when I do get emotional about my friends and my opportunities in life, you know, it's because, I mean, it's like, how much better does it get? All we're trying to do right now is triangulate and figure out the exact best angle so that because we got one or two tries at this, to get the shot that we really, really want to get. So it's like we're threading a needle. So I'm gonna go down and check out this second angle.
Yes. Don't worry, man. If, you know,
There's a lot of sharp rocks up here, but if it
pops,
you just fall in the water. So it's only issue is about like 90 feet down there, but the journey begins, man. I have to climb all the way over there, out there.
To show people what you see and who you are, that's a risk. But that is art. I couldn't imagine a life without it.
So I really want to shoot this with a super shallow depth of field, just to, I don't know, that's just what I think about this shot. I just want the edge of the wall super crisp with Chris on it. And then I just want the sea to kind of soft and just like feel infinite into almost like overexposure and get a little bit of this